So we just hit the mid-season point for the Bad Batch, and wow, episodes 7 and 8 were amazing. So far, I haven't really felt the need to do videos for the Bad Batch on the Eckhart Slaughter channel because I've really just felt satisfied covering the show in clip form, but I think these episodes really deserved it. So these prior two episodes took on a much more Clone Wars style feel. It was not only Clone Wars, but the best of the Clone Wars, a show which in my opinion was wildly inconsistent when it comes to arc quality. I love how everything is like a dark reflection of what we used to see. The Senate always, of course, had lots of opposing voices, but now it seems overrun by the evil ones. Over Coruscant loom Venator-class Star Destroyers, and not in a way that's meant to make the planet seem secure, rather under threat. I really like the pacing of these two episodes, and taking it back to the Clone Wars, this is something that I think the Clone Wars would have probably wrongly stretched out over 4 episodes. The main conflict through this arc is one that's been building through the past 2 seasons. What is going to happen to the clones? And we see some real twists and turns here. Things start out very reminiscent of the Fives arc from the Clone Wars, not only because they're in that clone bar again, but because we have a clone with a conspiracy theory, eager to tell the truth, but facing the machinery put in place by Palpatine. Right off the bat, in episode 7, I thought the action was slick. I definitely thought it was meant to be Crosshair, who was that sniper, and I like that they didn't make that reveal right away. Definitely still some mystery there for later on in the season, and I also like that episode 7 was completely devoid of the Bad Batch. Again, it had that Clone Wars feel, all the way down to the senators involved, including Chuchi, who appeared first all the way back in the Clone Wars Season 1. This episode, perhaps more than any other in the show's history so far, did a really interesting job of examining how the galaxy and how the Senate and the government was undergoing a difficult transition from the Republic era to the Imperial era. Right off the bat, we're led to believe that the Senate still may have some teeth, that they can maybe actually make change. Masamita is threatening Rampart, basically telling him that this new legislation needs to go through, and that can be contrasted with certainly the Death Star era Empire, where they would literally do whatever they want, but also even the Andor era Empire, where they were passing legislation basically on a whim, with the Senate more firmly under Palpatine's control. By the way, I thought this episode was a nice companion piece to Season 1 of Andor. But it's sort of interesting because even though we're hearing about how maybe the Senate can get something accomplished, we're seeing people killed left and right, and we also know that the corruption goes even deeper than the characters realize. I enjoyed how the episode also focused on the rights of clones, what their future would be like if they were retired from the Empire, and especially in episode 8, of course, we're now getting more and more of a clear indication that yeah, the clones were prematurely retired. There weren't too many aging out, and I think later on in the season, we could see something as violent as even a clone purge, but certainly a forced retirement. I also enjoyed the subterfuge about what really caused the disaster on Kamino, and Bale is a real one for pointing out, guys, Kamino's a water world that literally has been for thousands of years. The Kaminoans designed their cities to survive these apocalyptic conditions. Anyway, I enjoyed the setup we got in episode 7, most of which would be dealt with in episode 8, but some of which is left hanging for later on in the season, including what's going on with this mysterious sort of null clone. Anyway, with episode 8, we get the big reveal that Gonki is in fact still alive. That's our first time seeing him this season. And we also have the Bad Batch now formally brought into the situation as they're called in by Captain Rex. The whole thing here is that they're going to steal data from the Kaminoan Venator as sort of proof that Rampart purposely destroyed the planet and that the need for new soldiers is not only artificially created, but that funds are already being illegally moved around. I should have mentioned this when talking about episode 7, but I really liked how those clones were brought up. I actually did a clip at the end of the Bad Batch Season 1 talking about those two clones on the firing station and how traumatic that must have been, and well, I'm happy to see that I was in fact correct. I really liked the break-in sequence on the Venator. The whole area was cool. It reminded me of some locations we saw in episode 3, including the sort of dock that Obi-Wan and Anakin say goodbye at, sort of their last time meeting as friends. I do have to wonder, why did Omega go with Chuchi. Like, she literally ran into Rampart, who I thought was looking for her. That was just a really questionable decision. Probably should have stayed on the ship, and I know I'm starting to sound like Hunter. But yeah, the visual quality of the show has always been great. I thought that whole sequence really brought it to the next level. And of course, they're successful. The good guys do everything right. They find proof of the Empire purposefully burning Kamino. They have a senator testifying, or rather ex-senator, it's Halle Bertoni. But then it doesn't matter, because in an absolutely awesome sequence, Palpatine comes up and simply reminds everyone who's really in charge. I first thought that he was simply going to just shut the discussion down, try to move past it, but the way he turned what looked to be a loss into a huge policy win, I just thought was excellent. That was one of my favorite moments of the series so far. For those of you who missed the episode but are watching this for some reason, basically Palpatine acknowledges, yeah, it looks like we did have a rogue admiral burning Kamino, and it's concerning that the clones followed his orders without question. We're certainly going to need to replace these guys with stormtroopers as soon as possible. So yeah, I just thought that was excellent, and the episode ends off with kind of a funny sequence. We have Chuchi standing there talking about how she wants clones to have all the same rights as citizens, and literally standing right there is Echo with a Torx screwdriver for one hand. Something about that moment just made me laugh out loud, but then we learned that, hey, he's actually leaving. This was, I thought, a moment that didn't quite play out as emotionally as it could have, because the show hasn't really put the legwork into establishing Echo as a character, or even Omega's relationship with Echo. It wasn't awful, but it could have hit better, I think, if the show, gave him a bit more time and differentiated him more from Tech. Even in this past episode, anytime there was something technical that needed to be done, it was Tech. Overall, I thought these were a couple of excellent episodes for a mid-season point for the Bad Batch, but let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this one? Were you mad about it? Let me know all of that and more down below. By the way, guys, just a reminder, some of you know this, some of you do not. I do have a Clips channel, X Clips, where I cover the Bad Batch much more regularly. We upload 1 to 2 short videos a day, and we look at the real sort of minutia that sometimes I don't quite cover on this channel. I'm sure we'll be covering the Bad Batch for most of this week, so if you want to subscribe, you can go to youtube.com/xclips. You'll definitely want to be subscribed there, by the way, as we approach Mando Season 3 time. But that's all I've got for you today. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.